everybody, and welcome to IELTS Live Thursday. Whoops. So, at the moment, you probably noticed that I'm focusing a lot on IELTS writing. And that's because, from my experience, a lot of students ignore the writing until it's close to the exam. And that's a big mistake. So I want you to encourage you to really start with writing when you start your practice. In fact, you should be doing everything. You should be doing reading, writing, speaking, and listening all together, because they all join together. And if you miss one out, you're losing an opportunity to enhance some of your other parts. So writing and reading, listening and speaking, they all go together. But anyway, I want to focus on writing because that's one reason students leave it too late and it takes longer than the others to develop, and therefore you need more time. And what tends to happen in many cases is that students use their reading and listening scores as an indication of their level. And actually it's not an indication of your level. It's only half of what you're going to be tested on. And the other two parts, the speaking and the writing, are the productive skills, and these are the ones that quite often cause students to fall below the band that they want. So it's really important to focus on them. And writing takes the longest. So at the moment, I'm really trying to do a lot on writing and explaining to you about the importance of the process of writing, of developing your writing, and above all, giving enough time to do all this. So students often tell me that they struggle with the timing in the exam or the timing of the writing. And I think what they mean is making sure that they can write the task 1 in 20 minutes and the task 2 in 40 minutes. Now, if you're struggling to write your tasks in that time frame, then you probably should just abandon the time frame and focus on actually writing. When I work with students, we don't really worry about the timing, not until we get close to the exam. So initially, what I want my students, and I want you to do too, is not to worry about the time. Just worry about writing at band 7, or worry about writing at band 8, or worrying about how to do a good letter or a good task 1 process or a good task 1 data question, a line graph or a pie chart. That's where your focus should be, not on getting it done in the time. Forget about the time. The time is always going to cause you problems if you are not able to write well. So we have a saying which you've probably heard: Rome wasn't built in a day. Essentially it means take your time. So be patient. Take time to develop your skills, to know how to write complex sentences, to learn how to use good linking devices. Not just words like therefore, moreover, furthermore. There are other devices that you can use as well, like participles, like using certain types of clause. These things you need time to develop and time for them to become natural in your writing. And it takes time to actually do all this, to do the writing up to the level that you want. So if you're looking for band 7, or increasingly I'm being asked by students to get them to band 8, and that is very, very difficult, and it takes a long time to do that. So you need time to develop skills, and you need time to process your writing so that you can get to those high levels. Okay, so I want to talk now about the steps that you need to go through when you produce a piece of writing. So firstly, you will get the question. And the first thing you need to do is to analyze that question. Now, if you're doing task one, if you're doing task one academic, you need to identify the type of question and you need to look at the data or the steps in the process or the information on the maps so that you can see what information is there. Is it what tense you have to use, how many steps you have to go through, and all of that information you need to assimilate before you can even think about how to write it. So analyze that. If you're doing a general training letter, you need to look at the information. You need to decide, is this a formal or an informal question? What am I writing about? Who am I writing to? Do I need to use dear sir or etc.? There's a lot that needs to go through your mind. If you're doing task two, then you need to look at the question. Always start at the end of the question. Is it a discussion? Is it pros and cons? Is it a problem solution? Is it how far do you agree? Is it do you agree or disagree? That's where I always look, because if you don't get that right, you will lose a huge amount of marks on your task fulfillment. So start at the end. What is it that they want me to do with this information? And then go back to the information, read the first part of the question and think about the topic. Okay, so that's all in your analysis. That's step one. Step two is to brainstorm. Now, if you're doing task one academic, the brainstorming there to my mind is, how do I split the information? What am I going to put in my first paragraph? What am I going to put in my second paragraph? And that also leads into your planning. It's part of your planning and brainstorming. If you are doing a general training letter, then the brainstorm to me is, what do I want the reply to this letter to be? Always think about the reply that you want. We would not write a letter to somebody without expecting a certain reply from them. And if you think about the reply you want, so if it's a complaint, you want the person to make good the problem. If it's an invitation, you want the person to come back and say, yes, I'd love to come, or no, I can't come. If it's asking them to do something for you, you want them to come back and say, yes, I'd love to do that. How do I do it? So try and write your letter to get that response. And that's a good starting point for your brainstorm. So what answer do I want from this letter? And if you're doing task two, then your brainstorm is about, what ideas have I got about this topic and what is my evidence? So you should keep asking why. Why do I believe that? Why do I think that? Why is that so? Why is that a problem? Why is that a good solution? Why is that an advantage? And why is that a disadvantage? Because unless you answer that question why in your task, then the examiner is not going to be convinced of your ideas. So all of your ideas need the question why, so that you can give the evidence. Okay, so step two, we've done our brainstorming. Step three now is to plan those ideas into a format that you can follow in your actual writing. So a whole mishmash of ideas in your head, or even scribbled on a piece of paper, is not going to translate logically into introduction, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, etc. So you have to organize these brainstorming thoughts, organize them into some points. So what point in your introduction, in your first paragraph, in your second paragraph? If you're doing task 1, what's going to go into your introduction? What's going to go into your overall comment? If you're doing one, you don't have to. What's going to go into paragraph 1? What's going to go into paragraph 2? Same with the letter. How are you going to introduce it? What are the important things? How are you going to write this logically? You know, what happened? and then what happened, and what are you going to ask the person to do. So this is your kind of logical way of organization, so that when you write, you can write it in a way that flows, that is cohesive. Okay, so that's step 3. Organize the ideas swimming around in your head or written, scribbled on paper into a workable plan. And then step 4 is to write. Now, while you're doing your planning, and I used to do this myself when I learnt French up to university level and had to write essays in French. And if there were some words that I really wanted to use, I would just jot them down alongside my plan so that I wouldn't forget to use them. And that's something you could do. If there are any particular vocabulary items or phrases that you know you want to use, to remind yourself to use them, just write them down alongside your plan. And then as you're writing, then you can focus not on the brainstorming, that's finished. You can focus on the language. How can I best express this idea? How can I link this idea with the one before it? And how can I put in an example so that it really supports my idea? So these are the kind of questions that you should have in your head as you are writing. Not, what do I know about this? So that's why it's really vital to do the brainstorm and the plan before you start writing your task. Okay. And then there is a final thing that you must do before you hand in your paper, either to your teacher or to the examiner, and that is check. Now, I advise everybody to have what I call a mental checklist, and that mental checklist is the mistakes that you know you make. And if you go through your essays, you will see those mistakes. Are they articles? Are they prepositions? Are they tense? Are they agreement? And you will know what these are, because they're the things that keep coming up and they annoy you because you can't stop making them. And that mental checklist means that those are the things you check first. Check your articles, check your prepositions, check your agreement, check your tense. Whatever it is that you often make mistakes with, check that first. And then you can read quickly through to see if there's anything else, anything that doesn't seem to make sense, for example. But if you don't do that check, then you're going to give the examiner a whole load of silly mistakes that you could correct if you spend the time on it. Okay. That sounds like an awful lot that you have to do. But believe you me, you have to do it. Because if you don't do it, you're not going to achieve a band 7, 7.5 or 8. So time it. I mean, 10 minutes you can spend on your analysis, your brainstorm and your plan. And then you can spend 5 minutes on your checking. And that will, if you're doing task 1, you can't really spend 10 minutes. You probably can only spend 5 minutes, and that's probably all you need. And then if you can write your essay in 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes, a couple of minutes to check. But on task 2, I would urge you to spend 10 minutes on your planning. So your analysis of the question, your brainstorming, and your plan. And then that gives you another, what have you got? You've got 40 minutes. So that gives you 20 minutes to write it, and then the rest of the time to check it. Yeah, that should work out. So, and most of the students that I work with would normally finish their essay, both tasks, with at least 5 minutes for task 2, and maybe even 5 minutes also for task 1, so they can really go back and check it. You don't want too much checking time, because what happens often is students start rewriting, and if you start rewriting, you'll get into a mess. If you've done good planning, you don't need to rewrite. You just need to check for mistakes. So more time on your planning, brainstorming, analysis of the question, a little bit of time to check any errors that you might have made, and then the bulk of the time is thinking about how can I do my express these ideas in my best English. using really good vocabulary, lots of good devices so that I can create very complex sentences and focus on your cohesion. So that's it really. I just wanted to say, don't worry about timing it from the beginning. Don't start worrying about timing until you get to your actual exam. So a few weeks before your exam. The rest of the time you should spend just developing your writing skill. And if you're an absolute beginner on this and you have no idea how to get started, then I'll give you a little tip. When I work with students who are quite low level, and I don't do this very often because, as you know, most of my students are looking for band 7, 7.5, and now more and more 8. But when I do work with low level students who have never done much writing before, I just tell them, look at the topic and write down 4 sentences about this topic. Just write down 4 sentences randomly. And then when you look at them, try to join them together to make a cohesive paragraph. And that's how you would start to build up your writing into what you need for the exam. So that's just a little tip if you're starting out and you've no idea what to do. If you've been doing the writing, then think about these processes, these steps. Analyze, brainstorm, plan, write, and check. There are 5 of them. And if you do all of those well, then over time you'll find that you will soon be able to do it in the time. Now, I have a little piece of training. It's a short video training that I'm going to post. It may be today. I'm just finalizing the link. If it isn't today, then it will be tomorrow. So I'll post that new piece of training. And at the end of the training, I'm making a special offer on my IELTS Writing Bootcamp. So look out for that today. If not today, then it should be in the group tomorrow. And really go and follow that training and think about how you are doing your writing. Any comments, any questions? If you want to talk to me about your writing in particular, I'm always happy to do that. So either send me a DM or just write IELTS writing and I will reach out to you. Okay, so that's all I have to say today. Hope that was useful. And remember, take your time, be patient. Rome wasn't built in a day.